The war had lasted 7 years. 7 long years of death and fire and pain. The Galactic Coalition, made up of 12 different alien species and the humans of Earth, fought against the Veth Empire. The Veth were terrifying creatures. They stood 3 meters tall and looked like wolves made of nightmare. Their bodies were covered in scales as black as space itself. Their claws could cut through metal like paper. Their teeth could crush bone without effort. Every species in the coalition feared the Veth. The Tyranni, with their 4 arms and blue skin, refused to fight them directly. The Melocs, small and clever creatures who built the best ships in the galaxy, would run at the first sight of Veth warriors. Even the mighty Gorath, who stood taller than humans and had skin like stone, spoke of the Veth in whispers, but the humans were different. They did not run. They did not whisper. They fought. The other species did not understand this. Humans were so small, so soft, so easy to break. A single Veth warrior could kill 10 humans in close combat. Their bodies had no natural armor. Their claws were tiny and dull. Their teeth were flat and useless for fighting. By every measure, humans should have been the weakest species in the coalition. Yet they were not. On the broken world of Karo 7, the battle had ended just hours ago. Coalition forces had won the ridge, pushing the Veth back into the valley below. The cost had been terrible. Bodies lay everywhere, from both sides. Broken ships smoked and burned. The air smelled of death. Sergeant Yuna sat on a piece of twisted metal and looked out at the destruction. She was small, even for a human, standing only 160 centimeters tall. Her black hair was cut short for practical reasons. Her face was tired, covered in dust and dried blood that was not her own. She wore the white armband of a field medic, now stained red and brown. Yuna was 32 years old. She had been a medic for 10 of those years. Her hands had saved more lives than most soldiers had taken. She did not carry a rifle. Her weapons were needles and bandages and medicine. Her battlefield was the space between life and death. Her team sat nearby, resting after the long day of horror. Taiho was her second in command, a calm man of 40 with gray streaks in his black hair. He had seen everything in his years of service. Nothing surprised him anymore. Nothing scared him either. His hands never shook, even when bombs fell around him. Selman was the youngest, only 23. This was her first real deployment. Her eyes still held the shock of what she had witnessed. She had trained for years, studied for countless hours, practiced on fake bodies and simulations. But nothing could prepare someone for the reality of war. Nothing could prepare someone for the smell of burning flesh or the sound of someone crying for their mother as they died. The 3 of them sat in silence. There was nothing to say. They had done their job. They had saved who they could save. The rest was in the hands of forces greater than them. Standard protocol was clear now. Secure the perimeter. Wait for the cleanup crews. Do not approach any wounded Veth. The Veth were known for tricks. They would pretend to be dying, then attack when someone came close. Many soldiers had died learning this lesson. Yuna knew the protocol. She had followed it many times before. She was too tired to do anything else anyway. Her body ached. Her mind was empty. She wanted nothing more than to close her eyes and sleep for 100 years. Then she heard it dot at first. She thought she was imagining things. The sound was faint, almost lost in the wind that blew through the destroyed landscape. She tilted her head and listened harder. There it was again. A cry. High and thin, desperate, full of pain and fear. Yuna stood up. Her tired body complained, but she ignored it. Sergeant? Taiho looked at her with concern. What is it? Do you hear that? She asked. Taiho listened. Somin listened too. For a moment, there was only the sound of wind and distant fires. Then the cry came again, and this time they all heard it. That sounds like... Soman started, then stopped. She did not know how to finish the sentence. Yuna knew. She knew exactly what that sound was. It was a sound that did not belong to any particular species or planet. It was a sound that crossed all boundaries of language and culture and biology. It was a universal sound. It was the cry of something young and dying. Yuna started walking toward the sound. Her feet moved on their own, carrying her down the slope toward the valley of death below. "Sergeant." Taiho's voice was sharp with alarm. "Where are you going?" "That's enemy territory." "I know," Yuna said. She did not stop walking. There could be Veth survivors down there. They could be using that sound as a trap. "I know," Yuna said again. Still, she did not stop. Soman looked at Taiho with wide eyes. Taiho swore under his breath and grabbed his medical kit. If his sergeant was going to walk into danger, he would walk with her. Soman hesitated for only a moment before following. The three humans made their way down into the valley, following the sound of a dying child. Above them, the stars of a foreign sky watched in silence. The universe held its breath. Something was about to change. Something important. Something that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. But at that moment, Yuna did not know any of this. She knew only one thing. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, something young was dying. And as long as she had breath in her body, she would try to save it. That was what humans did. That was who they were. And that was why the galaxy would never be the same. The valley was worse than Yuna had imagined. Broken machines lay everywhere like the bones of giant metal beasts. The ground was burned black in some places and torn open in others. Bodies of coalition soldiers and Veth warriors lay mixed together, enemies in life now equal in death. Yuna moved carefully through the destruction. Her feet found paths between the wreckage. Her eyes searched the darkness for any sign of movement. Behind her, Taiho and Soman followed in silence. They did not speak. Speaking might draw attention. Attention might mean death. The crying sound came again, closer now. It was weak, getting weaker. Whatever was making that sound did not have much time left. Yuna moved faster. She climbed over a fallen piece of a ship's hull and found herself at the edge of a crater. The hole in the ground was large, maybe 20 meters across. An orbital strike had created it, one of the massive bombs dropped from ships in space. The explosion had killed everything within 50 meters. Only the crater remained, a wound in the skin of the planet dot at the bottom of the crater. Yuna saw them. She stopped breathing. A Raka lay at the center of the crater. The creatures were legendary among coalition forces. They were the war beasts of the Veth, bonded companions that fought beside Veth warriors since ancient times. This one was enormous, easily 4 meters long from nose to tail. Its scales were the color of deep night, cracked and broken in many places. Silver blood leaked from wounds all over its body. One of its back legs was bent at a wrong angle, but it was alive. Very much alive. Its eyes were open, burning with amber light like 2 small suns. Those eyes were locked on Yuna. They promised death. They promised pain. They promised that any creature stupid enough to come closer would regret it for the few seconds. They had left to live. Then Yuna saw what the Raka was. Protecting. Half hidden beneath the beast's massive front paw was a small shape. A cub. A baby Raka, no bigger than a medium-sized dog. Its scales were not black like its mother's, but soft gray, the color of young ones who had not yet fully grown. Its eyes were closed. Its breathing was quick and shallow. A piece of metal, shrapnel from some explosion, stuck out of the cub's side. Blood pooled beneath it, dark and spreading. The cub was dying. Yuna understood everything in that moment. The mother had survived the battle. The mother had found her wounded child. The mother had carried the cub here, to this crater, hoping to hide from the enemy. The mother could not help her child. All the mother could do was watch her baby die and protect the small body from being disturbed. The Raka growled. The sound was low and deep, vibrating through the air and into Yuna's chest. It was a warning. The clearest warning possible. Come closer and die. Sergeant, Taiho whispered from behind her. We need to leave. Now. Yuna did not move. That thing has killed dozens of our soldiers today, Taiho continued. It will kill us too. There is nothing we can do here. Still, Yuna did not move. She looked at the Raka. The beast looked back at her. Two mothers, if Yuna was being honest with herself. Well, one mother and one woman who has saved enough children to feel like one. I know you cannot understand me, Yuna said. Her voice was calm and steady. I know we are enemies. I know you would kill me in a heartbeat if I threatened you or your child. The growling grew louder. But I also know something else. Yuna slowly, very slowly, took off her pack. She set it on the ground in front of her. I know what you are feeling right now. I know that fear. I know that helplessness. I have seen it in 1,000 mothers across 12 worlds. She unzipped the pack, showing its contents. Medical supplies, bandages, tools, medicine. Your child is dying. I can see it from here. That piece of metal has cut something important inside. Without help, your baby will be dead within the hour. The Raka's eyes flickered. For just a moment, the anger in them was replaced by something else. Something that looked almost like pain. I am a healer, Yuna said. She touched her white armband. I do not kill. I save. That is my purpose. That is why I exist. She took one small step forward. The Raka tensed, ready to spring. Yuna stopped. I cannot force you to trust me. I cannot make you believe that I mean no harm. I can only ask. She spread her empty hands, showing she had no weapons. Will you let me help your child? Will you let me try to save your baby's life? The moment stretched out like time had stopped. Taiho and Soman stood frozen behind their sergeant, certain they were about to watch her die. The Raka stared at the small human woman, this tiny creature who should have been running away in terror, but instead stood there, with empty hands and quiet words. Something passed between them. Yuna did not know what to call it. It was not language. It was not logic. It was something older and deeper than either of those things. It was the connection between two beings who both understood what it meant to care for the helpless. The Raka's growl faded. It did not move aside. It did not signal welcome, but it stopped threatening Dodd. It was waiting, watching, giving the human one chance. Yuna took a deep breath. Then she picked up her medical kit and walked toward the cub. Behind her, Taiho closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Sumon's hands were shaking so hard, she had to grip her own elbows to make them stop. And in the bottom of that crater, a human medic knelt beside a dying alien cub while a war beast watched with eyes that held both death and hope in equal measure. The impossible had begun. Yuna knelt beside the cub and studied the wound. The piece of metal had gone deep, cutting through the soft gray scales and into the flesh beneath. Silver blood pumped out with each weak heartbeat. The cub's breathing was getting slower. Its small body was growing cold. She had maybe 30 minutes. Maybe less. Taiho, she called softly. I need the surgical kit. The small one, for pediatric emergencies. For a moment, there was no response. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Taiho appeared at her side, moving slowly and carefully. He did not look at the Raka. He kept his eyes on the ground, on his sergeant, on anything except the massive predator watching them from 3 meters away. "Here," he said, handing her the kit. His voice was barely a whisper. "I need light," Yuna said. "Soman, bring the portable lamp." Low setting, warm color. Bright lights might startle her. Soman came forward on legs that felt like water. She was terrified, more terrified than she had ever been in her life. But her sergeant needed her. So she walked into that crater and set up the lamp with shaking hands. The warm light spread across the scene. Now Yuna could see the wound clearly. It was bad. Very bad. The shrapnel had cut into the cub's abdomen, possibly hitting vital organs. On a human patient, this would be a critical emergency. On an alien species she had never treated before, it was almost certainly impossible. Why Yuna had never let almost stop her before. "I need to clean the wound first," she said, speaking out loud. She was not talking to her team. She was talking to the mother. "I am going to touch your baby now. It might hurt a little, but I need to see how deep the metal has gone." The Raka watched. Its amber eyes followed every movement of Yuna's hands. Yuna reached out and touched the cub. The small creature whimpered but did not wake. Its body was cool and damp with blood. Carefully, gently, Yuna felt around the wound. The metal had gone deep, but it had missed the spine. That was good. She could feel the edge of something that might be an organ. Hard to say what kind without knowing vet biology. The metal was pressed against it, but had not cut through. If she could remove the shrapnel without pushing it further in, the cub might survive. Might. "Taiho, I need the extractor." The curved one. Taiho handed her the tool. It was designed for removing foreign objects from wounds, able to grip and pull without causing more damage. Yuna had used it 100 times before. Never on a creature like this. She took a deep breath. Then she began to work. The next hour was the longest of Yuna's life. She worked slowly, carefully, her hands moving with the precision of long practice. The shrapnel did not want to come out. It had twisted when it entered, hooking itself into the flesh. Each millimeter she moved, it risked tearing something important. The Raka watched without blinking. Its body was tense, ready to strike at any moment. Yuna could feel the weight of its gaze on her back. One wrong move. One cry of pain from the cub. That would be all it took. Sweat dripped down Yuna's face. Her arms were getting tired. Her eyes burned from focusing so hard in the dim light. But she did not stop. She could not stop. "There," she breathed. The shrapnel came free, finally, sliding out of the wound with a wet sound. Silver blood followed it, but less than before. The bleeding was slowing. Now came the hard part. Yuna examined the wound. There was damage inside, tissues that needed to be repaired, vessels that needed to be sealed. On a human, she would know exactly what to do. On this alien creature, she had to guess. "Plasma torch," she said. "Lowest setting." Taiho handed her the tool. It could generate a tiny, controlled flame, perfect for sealing wounds. Too hot, and it would cause more damage. Too cool, and it would not work at all. Yuna adjusted the setting by feel, by instinct. Then she began to close the internal wounds, one careful touch at a time. The cub whimpered again. Its legs twitched. The Raka made a sound, low and worried. Yuna felt her heart stop for a moment. "It is okay," she said, keeping her voice calm. "The pain means she is still fighting. Pain is good. Pain means life." She continued working. "Seal this vessel. Close this tear. Check for bleeding. Move on to the next." Her world shrank down to the small body beneath her hands. Nothing else existed. Not the war. Not the enemy. Not the massive predator that could kill her with a single swipe. Only the work. Only the life she was trying to save. Finally, after what felt like forever, Yuna sat back. The internal repairs were done, as best as she could manage. Now she needed to close the external wound. "Sutures," she said, "and a healing gel." Taiho gave her what she needed. Yuna stitched the wound closed with quick, practiced movements. Then she applied the gel, a special medicine that would help the flesh bond together and fight infection. When she was done, she pressed 2 fingers against the cub's neck, searching for a pulse. For a terrible moment, she felt nothing. Then there it was. A heartbeat. Stronger than before. Steady. The cub was alive. Yuna looked up at the Raka. The war beast stared back at her. Those amber eyes, which had promised death just an hour ago, now held something different. Something Yuna had never expected to see in the eyes of an enemy. Gratitude. The Raka lowered its massive head to the ground. It closed its eyes. And for the first time since Yuna had found them, the mother allowed herself to rest. The impossible was no longer impossible. Human had saved a Veth, and the universe would never be the same. The news spread fast. By sunrise, everyone at the Coalition base knew what Sergeant Yuna had done. Some called her a hero. Others called her a fool. A few called her a traitor. General Do-Yun was among those who called her a traitor. He was a hard man with a hard face, shaped by 30 years of military service. He had fought the Veth longer than anyone else in the sector. He had watched them kill his soldiers, destroy his ships, burn his worlds. He hated them with every fiber of his being, and now one of his medics had saved one of their beasts. "You violated direct orders," he said. His voice was cold as ice. "You entered enemy territory without permission. You provided medical aid to an enemy combatant. Do you understand how serious this is?" Yuna stood at attention in his office. She was tired, so tired she could barely stand. She had not slept in over 30 hours. Her uniform was still stained with silver blood. "Yes, sir," she said. "I understand. Then why did you do it?" Yuna thought about the question. She thought about the crying in the darkness. She thought about the mother's eyes, full of fear and love and desperation. She thought about the small body growing cold beneath her hands. "Because it was a child, sir. A child was dying. I could help. So I helped." General Do-Yun shook his head. "It was not a child. It was a weapon. Those beasts are bred for war. That cub would have grown up to kill our soldiers." "Maybe," Yuna said. "Or maybe not. We do not know what might have happened. We only know what did happen. A mother was watching her baby die. I stopped that from happening. That is all." The general opened his mouth to respond, but a sudden alarm interrupted him. Red lights began to flash. A voice came over the speaker system. "All senior officers to the command center. Emergency priority. This is not a drill." General Do-Yun gave Yuna a long look. "Stay here. We will continue this conversation later." He left. Yuna remained standing at attention, alone in the office, wondering what new disaster had struck. She found out soon enough. The Veth had sent a message, not through secret channels, not through coded communications. They had broadcast it openly, on every frequency, in every language, to every world in the Coalition. Every ship, every station, every planet with a receiver picked up the signal at the same time. It was a recording. The recording came from a Raka's bonding implant, a small device in the creature's brain that connected it to its Veth partner. The implant had recorded everything the mother had seen and heard. The whole galaxy watched as a small, human woman walked into a crater full of death. They watched as she knelt before a wounded beast and spoke words of peace. They watched as she ignored every survival instinct to save a life that meant nothing to her people's war effort. They watched as she worked for an hour, patient and careful, while a monster watched and waited. They watched as she saved a child. After the recording ended, a message appeared. Words in the formal language of the Veth Empire, translated automatically for all to understand. For 7 cycles, we have believed humans to be weak. They are small. They are soft. They break easily. We thought their kindness was a sign of cowardice. We thought their compassion was a sign of foolishness. We now understand our error. The humans are not weak. They possess something far more dangerous than strength. They possess mercy, and their mercy requires a courage that our greatest warriors do not have. We have fought many species in our history. We have defeated most of them, but we have never faced an enemy who would risk their life to save our children. We do not know how to fight such an enemy. We do not think we want to learn. Therefore, we request dialogue. We request peace. We request the chance to understand these strange small creatures who are somehow more terrifying than any weapon we have ever faced. The message was signed by the Veth High Command. All 7 members. For the first time in their empire's history, they had agreed on something without argument. They were afraid, not of human weapons, not of human ships, not of human soldiers. They were afraid of human kindness. General Doyan read the message 3 times. He could not believe what he was seeing. 7 years of war, millions of deaths, countless resources spent. And it was ending because one medic had saved 1 cub. He looked at the reports on his desk. The charges against Sergeant Yuna: violation of protocol, endangerment of personnel, aid to the enemy. He picked up the documents and fed them into the shredder. Some things were more important than protocol. Some things were more important than war. And some acts of kindness could not be punished. No matter what the rules said outside his window. The sun was rising over Karo 7. It painted the sky in colors of gold and pink, beautiful against the backdrop of destruction. A new day was beginning. A new chapter in the history of the galaxy. And it all started because a small human woman had heard a child crying in the darkness and had refused to walk away. The war was not over yet. Peace would take time. There were still enemies on both sides who did not want reconciliation. There were still wounds that would take generations to heal. But for the first time in 7 years, there was hope. And hope, Yuna would later say, was the most human thing of all. The Treaty of Karos was signed 6 months after that night in the crater. It was not a perfect peace. Too much blood had been spilled for that. Too many graves had been dug. Too many families had lost sons and daughters, mothers and fathers. The wounds were deep, and some of them would never fully heal. But it was peace. Real peace. The Duns fell silent. The ships returned home. Soldiers who had spent years fighting for their lives suddenly had to learn how to live again. It was harder than anyone expected. Yuna refused every medal they tried to give her. She refused every promotion. She refused every request for interviews from reporters who wanted to tell her story. She did not want to be famous. She did not want to be a symbol. She just wanted to do her job. She returned to teaching. The coalition gave her a position at the medical training center on the colony world of New Bizen. It was a quiet place, far from the old battlefields, far from the politicians and the ceremonies. It was exactly what she wanted. Her students came from all over the coalition. Humans, mostly, but also aliens from other species who wanted to learn the human way of medicine. They were young and eager and full of questions. Yuna taught them everything she knew. She taught them how to stop bleeding and how to set bones. She taught them how to recognize shock and how to treat burns. She taught them the science of healing, the art of saving lives, but she also taught them something else. Every species in this galaxy has monsters, she would tell her students. They would sit in their seats and listen with wide eyes. Creatures they fear, enemies they hate, things that live in the darkness and in their nightmares. This is normal. This is natural. Fear keeps us alive. She would pause here, letting the words sink in. But every species also has mothers, fathers, children, families, loves, hopes, dreams. Behind every monster is a story. Behind every enemy is a person. This is also normal. This is also natural. We forget it too easily. She would walk among them, looking at their young faces. In the worst moments, when everything is fire and blood and fear, you will have a choice. You can see the monster, or you can see the mother. You can see the enemy, or you can see the person. She would stop at the front of the room and face them all. The galaxy has enough soldiers who see monsters. We need mechs who see mothers. We need healers who see persons. That is why you are here. That is what I will teach you. If you cannot learn this lesson, then all the medical knowledge in the universe will not make you a true healer. Some students did not understand at first. War was simpler when the enemy was just a monster. It was easier to fight, easier to kill, easier to hate. Seeing the enemy as a person made everything complicated. But that was the point. Life was complicated. Peace was complicated. Healing was complicated. And the complicated path was usually the right one. Years passed. Yuna grew older. Her black hair turned gray, then white. Her hands, which had saved so many lives, began to shake a little. But she kept teaching. She kept healing. She kept believing. Then one day, a visitor came. The delegation arrived without warning. 3 Veth, tall and terrible in their formal robes, walking through the human colony as if they belonged there. Behind them walked a Raka, massive and dark, drawing stares from everyone who saw it. Yuna met them at the door of her small house. She was old now, her face lined with years, her body bent with age. But her eyes were still sharp. Her mind was still clear. "You are Yuna," the lead Veth said. It was not a question. "I am. We have traveled far to find you. We bring a message from one who could not come herself." Yuna tilted her head. "Herself?" The Veth stepped aside. The Raka came forward. It was smaller than the one Yuna remembered from that night so long ago, but it was fully grown now, strong and proud. Its scales were the color of deep night. Its eyes were amber fire, but there was something familiar in those eyes. Something that made Yuna's old heart skip a beat. "The cub," she whispered. "The cub I saved." The Raka lowered its great head until its eyes were level with Yuna's. Then it made a sound soft and low, almost like a purr. "She remembers you," the Veth translator said. "She has never forgotten." Her mother told her the story many times before she passed. The story of the small human who walked into the darkness. The story of the healer who saw not an enemy, but a child. Tears formed in Yuna's old eyes. She had wondered, sometimes, what had happened to that little gray cub. She had wondered if it had survived, if it had grown strong, if it had found happiness in the years after the war. "She has come to tell you something," the translator continued. "Something important. She has had her first offspring, a daughter, and she has named that daughter in the human way." Yuna's heart stopped. "What name?" The Raka made another sound. The translator smiled, a strange expression on a Veth face. "Yuna. She named her daughter Yuna. She says that among her people, the name now carries meaning. It means kindness. It means courage. It means the choice to see a mother instead of a monster." The Raka lifted its head and looked at Yuna with eyes full of gratitude and love. Across the vast gulf of species and history and war, 2 beings who should have been enemies shared a moment of perfect understanding. "She wants you to know," the translator said, "that her daughter will grow up hearing your story, and her daughter's daughters will hear it too. For as long as her line continues, They will remember the human who taught them that enemies can become friends, and that sometimes the strongest weapon is an open hand. Yuna reached out with her old, shaking hand. The Raka pressed its great head against her palm, warm and alive and real. "Tell her," Yuna said, her voice thick with tears, "that I am honored. Tell her that I will remember this moment for whatever time I have left. And tell her daughter, my little namesake, that the galaxy is full of darkness, but it is also full of light. She must choose which one to carry." The Raka purred again, and somehow Yuna knew that the message had been received. Outside, the sun was setting over New Bizan. The sky was painted in colors of gold and pink. Beautiful and peaceful. A new story was beginning. A story that would be told across the stars, from generation to generation. From species to species. The story of a war beast who stood still while a human medic saved its dying cub. The story of kindness in the darkness. The story of hope. And in that story, humanity found something better than victory. They found their place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as healers. As friends. As family. And that, in the end, was the most human thing of all.